Hello, welcome to Gurukul's CAT 100 series, a series that's designed specifically to take you from your study room to the corporate boardroom. I am Prady Sharma and this is Verbal Mastery with Prady.
Hello everyone, welcome back to day 79 of our 100 days to CAT test series. Now, this is the passage for today. In case you want to take this up as a test, all you've got to do is go on to www.thegurukul.org.in and sign up for our 100 days to CAT test series. If you want to follow along with this video, then this is your paragraph number 1 and 2. Pause the video here, read these paragraphs, and then we're going to go into the next paragraphs. These are your next paragraphs. Pause the video here, read these paragraphs, and then we're going to go into the questions of this passage. This is passage question number 1. Pause the video here, answer this question, and then we're going to go into the next question. This question number 2, pause the video here, answer this question, and then we're going to go into the third question. This is the third question, pause the video here, answer this question, and then we're going to go into the last question of the passage. This is the last question of the passage, pause the video here, answer this question, and then we're going to get into the passage and question explanations. The passage says it would be enormously convenient to have one single generally accepted index of economic and social welfare of the people of the United States. A glance at it would tell us how much better or worse off we had become each year, and we would judge the desirability of any proposed action by asking whether it would raise or lower this index. So what is the author trying to say? He's saying that it will be very helpful if we have one measure of both economic and social welfare for all the people of the United States, and just by looking at that we would be able to understand how how better or how bad our situation has been compared to the previous years, and also if any proposed action was to be taken. Okay, just by seeing how that action would impact this index or the score on this index, we could say if we should be taking that action or not. Some recent discussion implies that such an index could be constructed. Okay, that means they can make such an index. Articles in the popular press even criticize the gross national product because it's not such a complete index of welfare, ignoring on the one hand that it was never intended to be and suggesting on the other that with appropriate changes it could be converted into one. So there are a lot of articles that are coming out in the media and all which are criticizing gross national product. Apparently that's one of the index, okay, because it's not such a complete index of welfare. So they're criticizing this GNP because it's not a complete index as they had desired. Okay, on the one hand that it was never intended to be. So why did we not think of GNP being one complete index is what they're saying on the one hand, and on the second hand they're saying that okay, if you make enough changes to the GNP then it could become the index that we so want, the one index that represents everything. The output available to satisfy our wants and needs is one important determinant of welfare. Whatever want, need or social problem engages our attention, we ordinarily can more easily find resources to deal with it when output is large and growing than when it is not. So all this talk about output is nothing but all the resources that we have. Okay, now if we have enough resources then all our wants and needs can be fulfilled, and if the number of resources are less, if the amount of resources that we have is less, then it becomes proportionally harder. GNP measures output fairly well, but to evaluate welfare we need to have additional measures which would be far more difficult to construct. We need to have an index of real costs incurred in production because we are better off if we get the same output at less cost. So basically what's he saying? Okay, GNP is able to measure our productivity or our output very well, okay, the amount of resources that we have extremely well. But if we are actually going to look at the welfare aspect of it, then we'll need more complex, more different or we'll need additional measures, okay, which are not that easy to construct. In fact, we would need an index, okay, we'll need a scale which actually tells us about the real costs incurred in production. And why would we need that? Because if we know that we can get the same amount of product for less cost, then it's always better, right? That's more efficiency. Use of just man hours for welfare evaluation would unreasonably imply that to increase total hours by raising the hours of 8 women from 60 to 65 a week imposes no more burden than raising the hours of 8 men from 40 to 45 a week, or even than hiring one involuntary unemployed person for 40 hours a week. So basically what is happening, we're raising 5 hours for 8 women, that is 40 hours. Okay, now he's saying that this and raising 5 hours for 8 men for 40 hours, technically on the paper these both are same, but here they're having to go from 60 hours to 65 hours, which is a very big ask, whereas over here only 40 to 45 hours, which is comparatively manageable. Or you could just get one additional person who is working 40 hours and then also this whole goal will be satisfied. But we are saying that all these three are same, and that is not really the correct way to go forward with it. A measure of real cost of labor would also have to consider working conditions. Most of us spend half of our waking hours on the job, and our welfare is vitally affected by the circumstances in which we spend these hours. So one of the real costs that are incurred in all of this production process is how good your environment is where you're working, because you spend a considerable amount of time working over there. Now let's get into the second parts of the paragraph. To measure welfare, we need a measure of changes in the need. Our output must satisfy one aspect. Population change is now handled by converting output to a per capita based on the assumption that other things equal, twice as many people need twice as many goods and services to be equally well off. So basically he's saying that, okay, to understand welfare and to measure welfare, we need certain changes in how we are measuring what output we need, what product, goods and services we need to satisfy ourselves. So one of such changes is that of the population. As the population increases, he says that we have managed this very well by putting per capita. That means initially if we are looking at X amount, okay, or X dollars, okay, overall the country gets. Now if initially there were 100 people, then it is X by 100. Now if this 100 increases to 120, okay, for this 120 how much should be there for the same ratio to be maintained is what is ideal. Okay, so everything is getting divided by the number of people there are in that particular country. But if an index of needs would also account for differences in requirements for living as the populations become more urbanized and suburbanized, for the changes in national defense requirements and for the changes in the effect of weather on our needs, the index would have to tell us the cost of meeting our needs in a base year compared with the cost of meeting them equally well under the circumstances prevailing in every other year. So if there are other, problems that I have to take care of, other differences that I have to take care of also, then the index that I'm trying to construct should be able to tell me how much I have done in a base year. That means something of a threshold type, okay, something of a zero level, and then compared to that base year, I should be able to tell if I've done better or worse in the subsequent years. Measures of needs shade into measures of the human and physical environment in which we live. We are all enormously affected by the people around us. Can we go where we like without fear of attack? We're also affected by the physical environment, purity of water and air, accessibility of parkland and other conditions. To measure this requires accurate data, but such data are generally deficient. So the measure of needs again encompasses other things also, like the pollution, the environment, the purity, accessibility of water, air, parkland. Parkland is basically parks, so the standard of living and all of that is also very needed for us to measure this concept of needs, but such data is not available at all, or it is available very less. Moreover, weighing is required to combine robberies and murders in a crime index, to combine pollution of the Potomac and pollution of the Lake Erie into a water pollution index, and then to combine crime and water pollution together into some general index, but there's no basis for weighing these beyond individual preference. So, okay, I have scales for different things, different entities, but when I'm trying to combine most of these entities, then all of these entities are subjective. There's no actual weight that I can give. I cannot say that robbery will take a precedence over water pollution, or water pollution will take a precedence over some other type of a crime, murders or anything, because this is all very subjective. One person might need one thing more, the other person, depending on where they live, might have the need of something else more. Okay, there are further problems. To measure welfare, we would need an index of the goodness of distribution of income. There is surely consensus that that given the same total income and output, a distribution with fewer families in poverty would be better. But what is the ideal distribution? So how much should each family get? What should be the actual amount of money that each family gets to actually live with all their needs being satisfied? That consensus also we do not have yet. Even if we could construct indices of output, real costs, needs, states of the environment, we could not compute a welfare index because we have no system of weight to combine them. Even if we have individual measures for all these things, how will we combine them without knowing which is more important than the other? Because we cannot weigh in, we cannot say that this is more important than the other. There's no objective measure to that. We cannot be getting such a scale. Now that we've understood the passage, let's go into the question explanations. The first question says the author's primary concern is to A, refute arguments for a position. Now see, he's not refuting arguments, he's basically trying to show us some kind of a fault. Okay, you want this, but these are all the problems that you have. He's not saying that it cannot be done. He's also saying that, okay, some people think it can be done. Yes, it may be even possible, but for you to do all these, for you to get that scale, these are all the problems that you are having. So A will not be my answer. B, make a proposal and defend it. Now the author is not making this proposal. The author is merely talking about a proposal that's been made. So it's not going to be B. C. Attack the sincerity of an opponent. There's no one particular opponent. We were just talking about a proposal in general. So it's not going to be attacking the sincerity of an opponent. So D. Show defects in the proposal. Yes, so there's a proposal and what are all the problems are being highlighted by the author. So obviously the correct answer will be 4. Now let's go to the second question. The author implies that use of man hours is not an appropriate measure of real cost because. So why is using man hours not really correct for us when we are looking at the real costs that are involved? A. Ignores the conditions under which the output is generated. Obviously, see, it's not only number of hours you're working, but how you're working, where you're working, what's the environment that you're working at. All that's also important, and that's what we've seen according to the passage, correct? So A makes sense. Let's look at the other. Fails to take into consideration the environmental cost of production. Now, environment cost of production is one part of it, but this is just a partial scope choice. So definitely not going to be B. C. Overemphasizes the output of real goods as opposed to services. Nowhere has he told that real goods are more important than services. So definitely not C. Fourth, is not an effective method for reducing unemployment. See, we're not talking about methods for reducing unemployment. Where we're talking about why can we not use that man hours concept to get a index value. So D is just irrelevant. So the correct answer over here should be A. Now looking at the third question, it can be inferred from the passage that most important reason a single index of welfare cannot be designed is. So why can one single index not come up? A. The cost associated with producing the index would be prohibitive. Again, there's nothing prohibitive about the cost associated with making that index. We do not have one way to combine all of these indices. So A will not be my answer. B. Considerable empirical research would have to be done regarding the output and needs. See, some research, if I may say, that we are able to pinpoint that we need these index, we just don't know how to combine them. So B also does not make complete sense. C. Any weighing of various measures into a general index would be inherently subjective and arbitrary. Yes, since we cannot find an objective base to put in the weight of each of these indices, we are definitely not going to be able to get one general index. So C makes a lot of sense. D. Production of the relevant data would require time, thus the index would only be a reflection of past welfare. Now this has not been spoken about in the passage at all, that it will only be a reflection of past welfare. In fact, the author says that if we are able to make such an index, we should be able to compare our current position with the past position. So definitely not going to be our answer. The best possible answer now becomes C. Let's go to the last question. Now the fourth question. According to the passage, GNP is an. So it's a fairly accurate measure of output. Obviously, it tells us exactly how much output is being produced by the country. So this definitely should be my answer. But let me just go through the other one also. Reliable estimate of needs. See, we do not know the reliable estimate of needs. We only know about the output. So 2 will not be the correct answer. Accurate forecaster of welfare absolutely has nothing to do with welfare. That's the biggest disadvantage with GNP, right? So not 3. Precise measure of welfare. See, accurate forecaster of welfare and precise measure of welfare both talk about welfare, but GNP has nothing to do with welfare. So not 4 either. The best possible answer now becomes A. If you watched this video till here, please do consider hitting that like button because that motivates us a lot to keep bringing these videos for you. Subscribe to this channel and share this video with a friend who is preparing for CAT 2025 but does not have enough resources. I'll see you in the next video.
Hope you enjoyed learning from today's session.
This series is designed to help you with your CAT preparation and practice daily. We are with you in this journey.
To watch the next video, click here. And to watch Gurukul's CAT 100 series, study room to boardroom, the entire playlist, click here.
If you learned from today's session, like, share, and subscribe.